When it comes to going from being a beginner guitar player to an intermediate guitar player, one of the things that you need to have down to do that is bar chords, at least 2 forms of bar chords. If you didn't know, there are 5 different ways that we can play bar chords, but you've got to know at least 2 of those to really move on from being a beginner to an intermediate guitar player. Now, I've talked about one of these forms of bar chords. We call them E-shape bar chords before. Today, we're gonna dive into A-shape bar chords, how to play them, some different things that you can do to practice them, and how they're really going to help you play all over the neck and make all sorts of cool music. So let's dive right in. Now, first of all, what the heck is a bar chord? A bar chord is when we use our first finger to bar across the strings of the guitar, and then we use our second, third, and fourth finger to make a chord, like that. Beauty, eh? Now, when I've gone over E-shaped bar chords before, those chords are all based on your open E chord, hence the name. But today, all the chords that we're gonna be doing are based on your open A chord. So to get this down, there's a few things you're gonna need to know. First of all, if you already know how to play your open A chord, what I want you to do, if you've been playing it with your first, second, and third finger, I want you to switch. I want you to play your open A chord with your second, third, and fourth fingers instead. So that means your second finger goes on the second fret of your fourth string, your third finger goes on the second fret of your third string, and your fourth finger, your pinky, goes on the second fret of your second string. Then you have to have your fifth string open and your first string open. And you can play those 5 as your open A chord. Now, for me, my fingers are too fat to do that all the time. So I cheat, and I invite you to cheat as well, okay? If you can, if your fingers are too fat, you can use your fingers to play more than one string at a time. For example, the way that I used to do this when I was starting out is I would use my second finger and kind of lay it on top of my fourth string and my third string. So the tip of my finger is really in between those strings. And then I'm kind of pressing down on both of them at the same time. Then I would use my third finger to play the second string. And that way I could use 2 fingers to do that. You could also do that with your pinky and your third finger, or your second finger and your pinky if you're crazy. Whatever works, okay? Now, most of the time, because of the way that my fingers can bend, I use 1 finger. Okay, I can really bend my finger back like this, okay? And so I've accustomed myself to doing that. And so I just bar my A chord with 1 finger, and it's so much easier. And I can do it with my first finger, second finger, or third finger. And if you can do that, I invite you to do that. That makes my life easier, and it'll make your life easier if your fingers bend that way. I get it that some people's fingers don't bend like that. And if not, then you just play it one of the other ways. Now, once you've got that down and you're used to playing your A chord, the next step that I want you to do is I want you to play that A chord at different places on the fretboard, okay? I just want you to play, keeping your fifth and first strings open. I want you to slide this around to different frets and try hearing it. That's if I go up to my third fret. Now I'm gonna put my fingers on the fourth fret, fifth fret, sixth fret, seventh fret. Now my fingers are getting too fat, so I'm just gonna switch how I'm playing this. 8th fret, 9th fret, 10th fret, 11th fret, 12th, 13, and then my 14th fret, which is the octave. Something really cool sounding that you can do is you can practice moving that around just by messing around with that. So for example, you can play your open A chord. And then if you slide your fingers up to your 5th fret, technically that's a C chord with an A in the bass, okay? So then if I slide up to the 7th fret, that's a D chord with an A in the bass. And you can just go between those. Or you can even go up to your 9th fret. If you're on your 9th fret, That's an E chord. That's one step that most people skip when they're playing bar chords, is they forget that these chords are actually based on these open chords. So one thing that you need to do is to practice moving them around the fretboard even before you do your bar, okay? Now, the next thing that you're gonna need to do is you're going to need to know the notes along your A string, okay? Now, obviously your A string is tuned to A, okay? And so you need to know the name of each note going up and down the fret from your 1st fret to your 12th fret. If you don't know this, I will link at the end of this video to a video about how to memorize the fretboard, and it's a lot easier than you think it's gonna be. But here's the notes that you're gonna memorize. Your open A is A, your 1st fret is A sharp, your 2nd fret is B, your 3rd fret is C, your 4th fret is C sharp, 5th fret is D, your 6th is D sharp, your 7th fret is E, your 8th fret is F, your 9th fret is F sharp, your 10th fret is G, your 11th fret is G sharp, and then at 12 we go back to A. Now that is the order of all the notes in music, so knowing that is going to be critical to everything, really. Whenever I have students do this, we say sharp going up and flat coming down, because your accidental notes have 2 names. They have a sharp name and they have a flat name. Even though you're playing the same fret, they have 2 names. It's not as confusing as it sounds. You'll get used to it. So we're gonna start at A on 12, and then A flat instead of G sharp on 11. And then we're gonna have G on 10, and then we're going to have G flat instead of F sharp on 9. And then on 8 we have F, and on 7 we have E, and then we have E flat instead of D sharp, and then we have D, and then D flat, and then C, and then B, and then B flat, and then back to A. Now, I would recommend spending 1 minute, just set a timer on your phone for 1 minute, and just practice going through that cycle up and down as many times as you can. If you do that for 1 minute a day, that's going to help you get this down so that when you're playing these A bar chords, you can find any chord that you need. Now let's dive into actually playing your A bar chords, okay? So the point of this is we're going to take this A chord that we play open, and we're going to play it by taking our 1st finger, and we're going to start up high. I'm going to start on the 7th fret, okay? What I'm going to do with my 1st finger is I'm going to lay it flat across my 7th fret. And I'm going to try to get all 5 strings to ring out. I'm not playing the 6th string on this because your A chord is a 5-string chord. Okay, it's not a 6-string chord, so I'm not worried about my low E string right now. So my 1st finger is playing my 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st strings. Now, try not to just use the flattest part of your finger right here, okay? You actually want to roll back your finger and kind of use a little bit more of this side of your finger, okay? If you can do that, there's less flesh to press down against right here. But you're going to want to do that, and here's the trick. If you can't get all 5 strings to ring out but just by pressing it down, don't worry about it. The ones that you need to have ringing out are really your 5th string and your 1st string, because the other 3 strings you're going to play with your other fingers. So your 1st finger really only has to play 2 strings, not 5, okay? And so you need to practice getting your 5th string and your 1st string to ring out. Then you use your other fingers to make your A chord. So for example, I'm going to, up here, this 7, I'm now going to think is 0. And so 2 frets higher on my 4th string, which is what we would normally do, right? And I'm going to put my 2nd finger, if I do this the textbook way, and then on the 3rd string's 9th fret, which is 2 frets higher, I'm going to put my 3rd finger. And then on my 2nd string 9th fret, I'm going to put my pinky, because that's 2 frets higher. But frankly, for me, these frets are too small to fit all 3 of my fat fingers in there. So what I'm going to do is, if you can do that, that's great. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my third finger, and I'm going to bar my third finger on the 4th string and the 3rd string, and then I'm going to put my pinky down on the 2nd fret on the 9th string, okay? So I've got my 1st finger playing 7 on my 5th and my 1st strings, and then my 3rd finger right now is playing my 4th and 3rd strings on the 9th fret, and my pinky is playing the 9th fret on my 2nd string. I can also just do that with just my 3rd finger, and that's how I usually would do that. But like I said, if your finger can't bend like that, play it the way that you need to, the way that's going to work for you. So if that's using your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger, or if it's laying your finger in between strings and kind of smashing 2 strings down at once, or if you can bend your finger back and kind of bar all of them, the biggest thing to watch for with that is at first you might only hear 4 strings. You might not hear your 1st string because your finger might block that one. Honestly, that's okay, because what you want to do is work toward bending your finger more and getting that 1st string able to ring out. But if you start out and it's just, you're just hearing 4 strings, that's cool too, okay? Now, what chord did we just play? If we play an open A chord, your chord gets its name from your open A string, okay? That's the root note of that chord. The root note names any chord, okay? Now, because we're on our 7th fret now, that note is going to give us the name of the chord. And that note is an E. So when I play this shape here, I'm playing an E major chord. So the way that we would refer to this is we would say we're playing an A shape E chord, okay? Because we're using our A bar chord shape, which is based on this A chord. But I'm playing with my root note on E, and so that makes it an E chord. Now that also means that I can move this around the fretboard and I can play at any fret and I have a major chord using this shape. So check this out. If I slide down 1 fret, now I'm playing E flat. If I go down to 5 with my 1st finger, that's a D chord. If I go 1 more, that's a D flat or a C sharp. If I go 1 more, that's a C. If I go up to my 10th fret, I'm playing G. If I go to 9, I'm playing F sharp or G flat. Now, a simple chord progression you can use to practice just this major chord shape is this. You're just going to play at your 3rd fret, which is a C chord. And I'm just going to do downstrokes for 2 measures. So I'm just going to strum it 8 times like this. And then go to your 5th fret, which is a D. And then go up to your 7th fret, which is E. And then you can loop that. That sounds cool, right? Now, the biggest trick when you're changing these bar chords, if you're staying on A shape bar chords and just sliding around to different frets, it's moving your fingers as little as possible. If you need to, you can lift up your fingers and release pressure, but I would recommend leaving your fingers in contact with the strings as you slide, okay? Or if you listen to what I'm doing, my fingers are staying pressed down and I'm sliding the whole thing. Now that might take more hand strength than you have right now, but if you're practicing these bar chords and you're using them in actual music, you're going to get that down, your hand's going to get stronger, and you're going to be able to slide full bar chords around. Now, what about other bar chord shapes? Well, the 4 most important shapes that you need, well, this one is your major shape, which you gotta have, okay? The next one that you have to know is your minor shape, which is based on A minor. So if you know your A minor chord, it's your 2nd fret on your 4th string and your 3rd string, but then your 1st fret on your 2nd string. So if you need to, make that with your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger, okay? And then slide this shape of your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger up to 8 and 9. So your 3rd and 4th finger are on 9th fret, and your 2nd finger is on 8. And then you're going to lay your 1st finger down to play your 1st string and your 5th string. So now, right here where we're at on the 7th fret, that is an E minor chord because I'm playing an A shape minor chord and my root note on the 7th fret is E. So again, anywhere I move this, I have a minor chord using my A shape bar chord. So using the same idea of the chord progression that we just did, let's play E minor right here and move it down to D minor and then C minor and then back up. Right? You just want to practice moving that around and making that minor shape at all the frets. But remember, the higher you start up, at a certain point, it gets a little unwieldy to start up too high. Like I don't say start on your 10th fret, but your bar chords are easier around your 5th and 7th frets. So if you start higher and then go lower, your bar chords will get harder as you go lower. But here's the trick. Once you get that down up here, say you get this E minor down here and you're like, oh, that's easy, right? Well, you move that down to your 2nd fret. That's your B minor chord that everybody hates when they're starting out. Now, next, after that, the next shape that you need to know is your 7, or called the dominant 7 shape, okay? So this is based on your A7 chord, which in this case, you want to make it with your 3rd and 4th fingers, okay? So my 4th finger's on the 2nd fret of my 2nd string, 3rd string's open, and then my 3rd finger plays the 2nd fret of my 4th string, and then I have that. That's my A7. Now if I slide those fingers up to 9, and now my 1st finger has to play that 3rd string too, because that string is open. So you gotta make sure your 3rd finger doesn't block it, and that we can hear that 3rd string, okay? And then you're gonna play all 5 strings. And now you have a dominant 7 chord. And you can do the same idea. Just take that and move it from E to D to C and back up to D. And that's gonna give you a really simple chord progression just to practice right now. And the 4th shape that you need to know is your minor 7 shape. Now, if you know your minor chord, your A minor chord, and you don't know minor 7, it's the same idea as your 7 chord. What we're gonna do, if you make your A minor chord down here, with your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger, all you're gonna do is lift up your pinky and play your 3rd string open. And it's gonna sound like that. So what you're gonna do for this is your 2nd and 3rd finger to play this one. And then slide those up so your 2nd finger's on 8 on your 2nd string, and then your 3rd finger plays 9 on your 4th string. And again, your bar has to play your 5th, your 3rd, and your 1st strings, and that gives you a minor 7 chord. Now, if you like classic rock, that's a really famous If you can name that song, let me know down in the comments. It's a great old song. What I'm doing is I'm borrowing the 9th fret and I'm hammering on that minor 7 shape. So my 2nd finger is playing 10, and then my 3rd finger is playing 11 on the 4th string. And that's all that it is I'm hammering on and then pulling it off. And then the other chord is the same frets, but I'm playing a dominant 7 E-shaped chord. Now, once you know those 4 shapes for your A-shaped bar chords, you're good to go. Those are the 4 most important to know. Now, we can get fancier, and just for fun, let's give you a 5th one. What I want you to do is make your E7 A-shaped chord. So check this out. I'm on the 7th fret with my bar, and then I've got my 3rd finger on my 4th string, 9th fret, and my pinky playing the 9th fret on my 2nd string, but we're gonna add your 1st finger, okay? Your 1st finger is now going to play the 8th fret on your 3rd string, and if you play that, that is a major 7 chord, and it's super duper jazzy, okay? So it sounds great. So those are the 5 A bar chord shapes that I teach students. Now, here's the trick. You can find any chord progression from any song, and as long as you know your notes on your A string, what you're going to do is you're going to find that root note. So let's say that the chord that you need is a G, and you want to practice your A shape bar chord. So rather than playing a G here, you're like, well, where's G on my A string? And you go A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, right? And I need a G, let's say it's a G minor 7 chord, right? So I'm going to play that with my minor 7 shape. So you find the root note, the position of the root note, and then you place that chord shape on that note. And then let's say I have to change to a D major. Well, then I'm going to change down and I'm going to find D, which is the 5th fret, and play my major shape. And then let's say I need C7. So for C7, I'm going to find my C note, which is C on the 3rd fret. And then I'm going to play that with my major shape. Okay? The idea is you find your root note for that chord, and you either play the major, the minor, the 7, the dominant 7, or the major 7 chord on top of that shape. Changing position doesn't change your chord shape at all, because the chord shape keeps the relationship between all your notes the same, but the position does change the notes in the chord. So your root note that names the chord is going to totally change. So that's why you need to know at least your notes up and down that A string. So that's it for your A-shaped bar chords, guys. I want you to have some fun with these. Go play some songs using these. Even if you're used to playing them as open chords, I want you to go play them with your A-shaped bar chords, okay? And get used to playing these, because the more that you get used to these, the more freedom you're going to have with playing bar chords all over your neck, okay? Now, I do have another gift for you. If you go to my website at simpleguitar.com/jumpstart, there's a free jumpstart guitar course for you. So if you're just starting out and you want to jumpstart your guitar playing, or if you know somebody who's just starting out and they need a hand, have them go get that jumpstart guitar course, and it's going to boost their playing and give them a lot of fun and experience and get them playing real music right away. So thanks for watching today, guys. I hope that your A-shaped bar chords make sense. If not, let me know down in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.